So Anthony Joshua gets the job done in emphatic fashion, and he had a brilliant performance. And it is safe to say my prediction as to how the fight would go was completely wrong. I was completely off. But let's break down the fight, because I can recover from this. I'll be all right. Let's talk about the fight. So when the fight started, what did I notice? I noticed that Anthony Joshua jabbed to the body straight away, which I don't think Francis was expecting. Now, why did he do this? Because he was setting up for those shots that he would unleash in the first and second round. He was instantly jabbing to the body to try and make Ngannou drop his hands, and then he would be able to throw his power punches, and it worked really well. So he was already setting up the shots he wanted to throw straight away at the start of the fight. And the one thing I noticed from Anthony Joshua was his movement. It was beautiful. He was moving light on his feet, he was moving around. And what I think that is a result of is those Usyk fights. I think he has learned, especially in the heavyweight division, that movement is king. There are a lot of static fighters in that heavyweight division just because they are so heavy. And what Joshua has learned from fighting Usyk is that movement is king, as I said before. And what Joshua did throughout this first round was keep that guard nice and high. And he made sure not to get into any exchanges, any 50-50 situations. I thought that was super smart. And then in the first round, he clips FrancisNgannou with a beautiful right hand. And the way he was moving and the way he was jabbing to the body and landing to the head, I instantly regretted the video I put up saying Ngannou would win, because I knew it would be a long night for FrancisNgannou. And what Anthony Joshua recognised, and what I think was Ngannou's biggest downfall, was that Ngannou was pouring or parrying the jab every time, right? So Joshua would throw a jab, and Ngannou was trying to pour it. He was moving it like this, pour, pour, pour. And that left him open. That left him very, very open. And Joshua instantly clicked onto this, I noticed. Probably Ngannou's biggest downfall, because every time you pour a jab or you parry a jab, you're leaving your chin completely open. And it left him vulnerable, and that is what got him dropped with that first knockdown, in my opinion. And what didn't help either was Ngannou's head movement. There was little to no head movement, to be honest. He kept his head right on the center line. He didn't move it to the side or off the center line ever. Always on the center line. So Ngannou, I think, was trying to stay very central, parry those jabs that Anthony Joshua was throwing, and then he was trying to catch Joshua with that left hook that he caught Fury with. Now, unfortunately, again, that doesn't work unless your opponent overextends or rushes in. And yes, Fury did that, but Joshua is a completely different fighter, and if you've watched him before, he doesn't usually overextend. And I think he fell in love with that strike. I think Ngannou fell in love with that strike after knocking Fury down with it, and that might have been one of the biggest downfalls in this fight. He was relying on that check left hook, but AJ was not fully committing. He wasn't overextending, so he wasn't able to land it. And in the second round, Francis started throwing his own jabs. So he was throwing his own jabs and he was missing. And I'm not saying this is because Ngannou is bad. I'm going to commend Anthony Joshua for this, because I think AJ understood the distance and was moving so well, and that's what made Ngannou miss those jabs. I commend AJ for that 100%. And that's what allowed him to drop Ngannou again. I mean, he countered Ngannou's jab. Ngannou missed by millimeters. AJ judged that distance perfectly, and then he came back with his own right hand. He was behind. He was coming behind FrancisNgannou's punch, and he landed it beautifully. And then the ref obviously did the standing count, and as soon as they started the fight again, Anthony Joshua wasted no time in getting the job done, and he absolutely slept Ngannou with his right hand and capped off a great performance. I know it was short, but it was a great performance with a thunderous knockout. Great work from AJ. What do I think about this fight, actually? What do I think about this fight in general? I think it showed us that as much as we commend Ngannou for taking these big fights, I think it was a bit rushed, in my opinion. Now, looking back at it, in hindsight, I believe he definitely should have taken more time between the two fights and really perfected his craft for a lot longer, in my opinion, before stepping back in the ring. Now, I wouldn't have said this before, so I understand why Ngannou took the AJ fight so quickly, but now looking back, yes, it was a bit rushed. I just think with the punches in boxing coming much quicker, the movement being completely different, and only being able to use your fists, it's so much more different than people think compared to MMA. And these MMA guys really need time to adapt. I'm talking a year plus, I think, to really adapt to the new rule set. And I think everything was a bit rushed. I know Saudi Arabia were really pushing it. Obviously, there's a lot of money involved, so I understand why they did it. But for me, it was way too rushed. And the other thing I think this fight showed us was just how good AJ's team is. I think he's really nailed down getting the right people around him. And I love to see it. I think they would have looked at Ngannou's fight against Tyson Fury and realised, okay, he doesn't move his head. He's not light on his feet. He pause dash parries the jab. And that's our opening. And they only had 10 rounds of footage to look at, but they used every round of footage really well and figured out Ngannou very, very quickly. And I was very, very impressed by not only Joshua, but his team. And so now I ask the question, what does Francis do from here? I think for me, and I didn't say this after the Tyson Fury fight, I was on the hype train for sure. I have no shame in admitting that, by the way. I think I'd like to see Francis back in MMA, where he can use his kicks, where he can use his wrestling. He has got a potential fight back in the PFL. I can't remember what the guy's called, excuse me, but it looks like they want to set that up. The only reason as to why I can see that not happening is just because the money is so good in boxing. That Saudi money is sexy. Let's not kid ourselves. If I was offered the amount of money Ngannou gets to step in the ring with Joshua, I'd probably do it. I mean, the money is tempting. That's probably the only thing holding Ngannou back from going back to the PFL. But I'd love to see him back doing MMA. And for Anthony Joshua, he's got a bright future, in my opinion. I'm acting like he's really young, but I'm saying he's got a bright future. He will be fighting the winner of Usyk versus Fury. Both fights super interesting. I know some people don't want to see him fight Usyk again, but for me, the rematch against Usyk is actually very interesting. I think with Ben Davison in Anthony Joshua's corner, it would be quite interesting to see how they try and actually solve that puzzle that Anthony Joshua hasn't figured out yet. I think he's got better coaches. I think he's got better people around him. He looks more focused than ever. He's got a really nice controlled aggression when he fights. So that balance of the old AJ and the new AJ, I think, has actually merged really nicely. And I'd like to see him fight Usyk. And then if he does fight Fury, well, Ben Davison is Fury's old coach. So Anthony Joshua has a massive advantage in that fight. And I think that would be a really interesting fight as well. So I think AJ's in that position now where whatever he does will be super interesting. And I heard him in an interview after the fight saying he wants to fight both people, Usyk and Tyson Fury, which I think would be fucking great. I think would be absolutely brilliant. And if he does win those two fights, AJ could be the best heavyweight of this era, which is very interesting because he did have a slight dip in performance. He did, I thought he wasn't going to come back. I'll be honest with you guys. I thought AJ was done, but he seems to have revived his career. He's making the right moves. He's got the right people around him. And I'm very excited to see what happens next with Anthony Joshua. I think it's bright. I think it's great. Let me know what you guys thought of the fight. Did you think Ngannou was going to win? Did you think Anthony Joshua was going to win? Some people are saying this fight was staged. I think that's bullshit. Fantastic knockout. I don't think it was staged whatsoever. I mean, look at the replay. That would have slept absolutely anyone on the planet. So I think it's just a weird thing to say that it was staged. And I'm a fan of Ngannou. It's not staged. AJ was just much better on the night and is a much better boxer overall and in general, not just on the night. And who do you guys want to see Anthony Joshua fight next? Would you prefer to see him try and solve the puzzle of Alexander Usyk? Or would you prefer him to fight Tyson Fury? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and I am never going to make a prediction again